They preach the Word of God, but tonight the Catholic Church reveals the names of dozens of priests accused of sexual abuse. That is our top story at 11 o'clock. Thanks for staying up late. I'm David Allen. It's the latest chapter in a dark story for the Catholic Church. Among those accused of abusing children, 16 priests in the Diocese of Arlington and 42 priests in the Richmond Diocese, which covers Hampton Roads. All of this spells trouble for local churches already struggling to fill their pews. Robert Boyd starts us off tonight.
Their national numbers of parishes are shrinking. Membership is declining. It's plummeting.
Norfolk State University professor April Faye Manalang and her students are currently conducting research on why minority millennials are leaving the church. She says Wednesday's announcement from the Catholic Diocese of Richmond sums it all up.
They're leaving the church because they are skeptical of the credibility of their leaders. They feel hurt, they feel betrayed, and when scandals like these happen, it weakens the relationship that millennials have to the church.
Manalang says releasing this list of names is a much-needed step towards transparency.
I do think, though, that acknowledgement and taking responsibility for these scandals is a very important aspect of healing and reconciliation for the church broadly.
However, she also says it could be too little too late, considering these crimes go back decades. Many of the clergy named are dead or long retired.
I imagine that there will be people who will still be skeptical even if they make amends, because this has been covered up for many years already now.
She says as for the actual victims of abuse, it's got to be a time of mixed emotions.
I imagine that it will have an ambivalent effect. On one hand, it opens old wounds. On the other hand, there is some small sense of justice that at least their names are out there.
Holy Trinity Catholic Church in Norfolk held their weekly Wednesday night Mass. The homily centered around explaining the day's big announcement. But Senior Shawnee Williams says it doesn't matter what lengths the church goes to win back parishioners. There is just too much to overcome.
My dad turned his away at a very young age from the Catholic Church because of negative reasons. It almost makes you look crazy for joining a Catholic church and giving your children to the church when you hear things about what's happening.
Now, Robert, you went to Holy Trinity tonight. What are priests saying about at local parishes about all of this?
Well, they were willing to talk to me off the record, but not on the record. And that's because local priests here in Hampton Roads have been told by the Catholic Diocese of Richmond not to talk to the media, which unfortunately adds to that sense of skepticism we heard from students today.
All right, Robert, thanks so much for that. It was just months ago Hampton Roads dealt with another scandal involving a priest. Father Joe Metzger was placed on leave in December of 2018 after allegations he acted inappropriately around a minor. In a letter to parishioners at Blessed Sacrament in Norfolk, the church said there were no allegations of sexual abuse, but they say his interactions were, quote, not in keeping with the code of conduct with minors, end quote. There are ways to report clergy abuse. We posted the information on 13newsnow.com. Just click on the link to this story. That's where you can also find the full list of named clergy. Now to the latest trouble out of Richmond. One of the two women accusing Lieutenant Governor Justin Fairfax of sexual assault says she's ready to meet with prosecutors. Right now, Dr. Vanessa Tyson is working out a date to meet with the DA in Boston. That's where she says Fairfax assaulted her back in 2004. The Lieutenant Governor isn't saying much, but his office says he'll meet with the same prosecutors if they decide to investigate. And this late word tonight that House Speaker Kirk Cox isn't ruling out a probe by the General Assembly into the allegations. That's according to a report by the Richmond Times-Dispatch. Someone did come to the Lieutenant Governor's defense today, members of the NAACP.
There are increasing numbers of African American women who take offense to how Mr. Fairfax is being treated because of what it reflects of the history of such treatment of our fathers, our brothers, our sons.
Black men being hung, being shot, based on pure allegations.
Fairfax denies both allegations. He says any investigation will clear his name. We have been helping you understand this complicated story since it's broke. You can find updates around the clock no matter where you go by downloading the free 13 News Now app. Even with all of the drama in Richmond, lawmakers know they have a job to do. Both houses have passed a bill to raise the smoking age. It's a big deal when you consider Virginia's long history with the tobacco industry. Janu Hur is following the story from the newsroom tonight. Janu.
David, House Bill 2748 now heads to the governor's desk after the House and the Senate both passed it. Now, the bill will raise the age limit to buy tobacco to 21 years old. Speaker Kurt Cox says teen vaping is an epidemic and raising the age limit will have a positive effect on schools. Virginia-based tobacco giant Altria has already backed the legislation. That's the company formerly known as Philip Morris Companies. Now, Amy Paulson from EVMS says this change could make a huge difference for the future.
Predictions are, if we were to implement this, that by the time that the current kids are adults, the current teens are adults, we'd see a 12% decrease in tobacco use and a 10% decrease in smoking-related deaths.
Now, Delegate Chris Stolley from Virginia Beach said, and quote, the rapid growth of the number of teenagers vaping at a time when the use of traditional tobacco is at an all-time low should set off alarms for every parent. This legislation will help to reverse that trend, and I thank my colleagues for their support.
So, Chanu, how do the numbers compare between traditional tobacco use and vaping?
Well, David, experts say traditional tobacco use is actually down while vaping has doubled. So lawmakers hope that if this becomes law, it will help bring those numbers down.
Chanu, thank you. All new tonight, a Virginia preacher is accused of fleecing seniors out of thousands of dollars. Frederick Schmidt was indicted today. It stems from an international lottery fraud investigation that started back in 2016. Now, here's how the alleged scam worked. Victims got a phone call claiming they had won more than $1 million in a lotto drawing. But the victims were told they had to pay taxes in advance. They were told to send checks to an address in Powhatan County. Diane Lorio's elderly mother lost more than $100,000 in this scam.
My mom is older, and if you think my parents are educated, could never fall for this, that's not true. These people are good at what they do.
Now, as for the preacher, he told prosecutors he was duped too. He thought the checks landing in his mailbox were to help pay the taxes on his supposed lottery winnings. Since there are victims all over the country, this case could be handed over to the feds. Also new tonight, Tangier Island has running water again. That's according to Delmarva Now. The newspaper reports a water line broke during last month's cold snap, and since then the island's residents had to rely on shipments of donated bottled water. The line was fixed last week, and today came the all clear from the health department. The remote island has a population of about 700 people. Time is running out to avoid another government shutdown. Even though lawmakers have a deal, there's still a chance this thing could completely derail. Here's what's going on tonight. Lawmakers are rushing to get something written for a House vote tomorrow. They're still trying to get past a few disagreements. One of them, back pay for the thousands of contractors who got nothing for the last 35-day-long shutdown. Republican leaders say they've heard President Trump doesn't like that. Still, the president is showing signs he could sign the bill and keep the government open.
We're going to take a look at it when it comes. I don't want to see a shutdown. Shutdown would be a terrible thing.
Now, the deal gives the president $1.357 billion for 55 miles of barriers along the border. He had a better deal in December when he rejected $1.6 billion for the wall. It's a headline floating around social media. It claims despite bringing in record profits, Netflix isn't paying a cent in taxes. You know the Verified team is all over this one. Here's Jason Puckett.
Before you hop on your couch tonight and open Netflix, maybe you should know that the streaming giant paid no taxes last year. Well, at least according to these headlines. And everything on the internet is true, right? Wrong. Let's take a look at these claims and verify what is true and what's false. So we have a lot of sources. Most of them are heavy documents filed with the Securities and Exchange Commission or Netflix stockholders. First off, the claim that Netflix had record profits in 2018. Verified. Netflix declared $845 million in profits to the SEC. That's 5 to 6 times higher than previous years. But the second part of that claim, that they paid zero in taxes, that doesn't add up. Scroll down and you have their tax expenditures. Those parentheses mean a tax credit. So Netflix had about $32 million in tax credits in the US. But look at the last line. Netflix paid about $133 million in foreign taxes. That's about 15% of their income. Because of that, we know those claims that Netflix paid zero in taxes are false. Netflix paid taxes, more than $130 million. It just wasn't to the United States government. That report filed to the government shows Netflix paid more than $50 million in US taxes in 2016 and 17. So this is a new thing on their books. How did they manage to make $845 million in profits and not pay pay taxes in the United States? Well, companies can get tax credits for money that's taxed overseas, but outside these SEC and shareholder documents, Netflix doesn't have to publicly report how they did it, so we may never know. With your Verify, I'm Jason Puckett.